Hello and welcome to Respectable. It's your boy K, guys, and yeah, we're continuing with the Group A predictions. We're doing one of the three host nations. We're doing Mexico. Let's get it. Yeah, guys, straight down to business. Mexico, one of the host nations. We will be playing a World Cup in Mexico at the Estadio Azteca. My country will be their first game of the World Cup at the Azteca against Mexico. So yeah, guys, let's get on. Mexico with their coach Javier Aguera. They ranked 15th. I don't particularly like mentioning FIFA rankings. For me, they're irrelevant. I don't take mention to them. Anyone can beat anyone, in those top 10, top 20, so for me, only the top 5 matters basically because they will beat anyone there. But then the rest, you're just there because of points accumulated playing arguably one of the worst ones. CONCACAF is horrible. CONCACAF is horrible. Like, I do not rate CONCACAF at all. And Mexico played through CONCACAF, they won the Gold Cup, I think. If I'm not mistaken, let me cross-reference real quick. I think they did do well in the CONCACAF, But yeah, they didn't need to go through qualifiers. So, the data from Mexico, the data I look at is the CONCACAF they played in and the recent friendlies, which has been good, to be fair. If you look at the recent friendlies, the other day 1-0 against Australia, 2-0 against Ghana, 1-1 against Belgium, 0-0 against Portugal, 4-0 against Iceland. That's the last 5 friendlies. Just winning, and they're unbeaten in like what? If I counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, unbeaten in the whole 7 games. So, they're gonna be there. They have Javier Aguera who understands them, picks players from their league. Because if you check, let me quickly highlight the key players from Mexico. I just want to highlight the key players. First of all, I want to start with Raúl Jiménez from Fulham in the Premier League. Not really that prolific, but he does get the odd goal here and there, and he's an important part of this Mexico side. He will be starting up front. I doubt they'll start Santiago Jimenez, but we'll get to the lineup later. We can touch on Mora, highly rated youngster that they have. He does start games, and then I would also like to touch on to Edson Alvarez, former West Ham player, solid CDM, but I'm getting a sense he might be playing at centre back. Okay, to see, playing Lira there in the thingy. But yeah, touching on those friendlies again, I want to touch on the two friendlies against Belgium and Portugal and Belgium, where they got absolutely battered, possession and shots wise, but they still grinded out, which is what I think of Javier Aguera. I really think he's a pragmatic coach, and I think to win the World Cup, you need to be pragmatic. I'm not saying that all Mexico have a chance at winning the World Cup, surely not, but they can go for. You need to be pragmatic in a World Cup to go for, and I think he's a pragmatic coach where against the good side, he will sit in deep, and against the better side, he will be on the offensive, press high and thing, which I think that's how he will play against South Africa. He'll be pressing high, trying to upset them, plus South Africa not used to playing at that altitude, the Azteca, he'll be in their faces, making everything uncomfortable, that's how essentially he wants to play, And with the lineups, let me pull up the lineups real quick. They play 4-1-4-1, they have the Rangel, the Ochoa. Kudos to Ochoa, guys, Guillermo Ochoa for, his 6th. Is it a 6th edition of a World Cup? Crazy bonkers, guys, that this guy could he could play so many World Cup games. But I want to touch on the recent friendly against, against Australia. The one played on the 31st. It's played on the 31st. I want to touch on that, the lineup. Because what he said, Aguera, is these friendlies he will give us a glimpse of what he's going to line up against South Africa with, and his lineup for the World Cup in general. I can get a sense because I traced it back to the Gold Cup, traced it back to Mexico. There's some spots where I looked at Mexico. Don't particularly watch the Mexican games. I think they're boring. But, they do have some pieces in there. If you look at the lineup against Australia, they played 4-2-3-1 with Rangel. Different from the lineup I have posted up, but they have Rangel, Chavez, Vasquez, Alvarez at CP, which I think will be key because I think he's looking to play Lira in the midfield, But in this lineup I have posted up, I think he might not want to experiment a lot and just play and just play, sorry for that, and just play Alvarez CDM and play Chavez there with Vasquez, you know, Juan Lu Sanchez, we know from La Liga, you know, some pieces there. We know the Vegas from the last World Cup. You know, we know the Raul Jimenez, Santiago, you know. Now, little players playing in the MLS and the league in Mexico. So they have like the chemistry, they should have that chemistry. They're used to playing with each other. I really do rate Mexico a lot in this group, especially. I think they could make it as far. They could top this group. I don't think they go out in this edition, but please tune into my bracket. I always tell you, tune into my final predictions and bracket predictions. I do think Mexico can make it out of this group, and if they make it out, they have the tools, I think, to go a little bit far with a coach who I think has a style of play and lineup suited for a World Cup, you know, a little bit pragmatic, can grind out the results. But it should be interesting where they end up, you know. I hope, personally, I hope they don't beat my team and beat the other teams. You know, it doesn't matter to me, but they shouldn't beat my country. But I do really rate Mexico, and I think they could go far. Will they, though? You know, that we still have to see. But I'm excited for their chances playing at the Azteca. They do have a home field advantage, which is a real home field advantage. So we'll see how it goes, guys. But yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, share, turn on post notifications, and please, guys, as I say, get on these comments, get on the comments. And yeah, guys, peace.